Romper, stomper, bumper, boo. Look who Girlie has for you. It's Mike from Keto Mad. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Girlie. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing good. I'm really glad that we had a rehearsal on episode 2. You know, I know exactly what I'm supposed to say, even though I don't have a script.
It's unscripted, but somehow rehearsed. It's crazy.
Yes, yes. So what is new with you today on Tuesday?
Well, I just wanted to start by introducing myself to viewers who may not know me by pointing out what we share in common, which is that you keep your carbs under 20 per day, usually under 15. I keep mine pretty close to 0. There are incidental carbs in animal products. And we both do 1 meal a day. We're both OMAD fans. And I'm doing a different thing than our earlier conversation because, it would be boring to rehearse the earlier conversation. So I'm just changing things on you. I know you won't mind. When I first met you on YouTube, you were super impressed by my OMAD. You called me incredibly disciplined, and that felt great. But in fact, it's not a function of discipline. For me, it's a function of minimalism. It's a function of calculating the macros in a meal and then not having to do it anymore and having that meal again the next night. And it's the idea of not having to enter a lot of data from a bunch of meals every day. And this is a big difference between us. I know you're the queen of tracking in some ways. So you didn't have the incentives driving you to eating 1 meal a day that I did. We ended up there for very different reasons, but we both love being OMAD people. And I think it was last week or maybe the week before, you did a little testimonial about how powerful your OMAD is. And since I get more pushback from people on eating OMAD than I do about being a carnivore, I would really love to hear you talk at some length about what you get out of OMAD, sort of explain to viewers what the advantages are from your perspective.
I think it's funny because I probably get the advantages of OMAD like you get from carnivore. I never ever thought I could do 1 meal a day. It seemed to me like something that was like insurmountable, much less even something to think about. And then, so with my bulletproof coffee in hand, I went to 2 meals a day. And I don't know how it went, like when we talked about pivotal moments, I'm not really sure how it happened, but all of a sudden I said, okay, I'm going to do 1 meal a day and I'm going to reserve the right to go back to 2 meals a day if this doesn't work. And I loved it. And it just kept happening. And now I can't even imagine going back to 2 meals a day. I feel full just thinking about it. And, so I have a great big hearty appetite. So when I sit down to my OMAD, it's right there. It works. And I think I said it in a video that I did either this morning or I did yesterday morning for a future broadcast, is like my body knows, like volume, when the stop button gets hit. And I never had a full button as a little foodie and overeater. I never knew full. I would just keep going. And sometimes the thing that stopped me was having the dessert. And so I had all kinds of rules about that. I know you're surprised, right? So you will have this. It will be in the little dish. You can have it in the bedroom. It'll be the last thing you have before you put the light out and the TV off. And, I'm just such a rule-based person, and I know that I drank the same way too. Everything was like calculated. And,
right.
And I do think it's funny how we both ended up OMAD by 2 different routes. And were you OMAD almost right out of the gate with keto?
Almost right out of the gate. I was just for viewers of yours who don't know my story, I was turned on to keto by my brother. He had a cancer victim in his neighborhood who used the restricted ketogenic diet to help battle her brain cancer. And unfortunately, it wasn't successful. She did not come to keto until very late in the progression of her cancer. And the health benefits associated with changing her diet at the very end were tremendous, but they weren't enough. And everyone in that neighborhood, this is in a suburb of Dallas, everyone in the neighborhood started supporting her by eating keto with her. It was moral support. So that's how my brother started eating keto. And then a couple of weeks later, he was walking out of a Target, I think, and his pants fell down to his ankles. And so when he saw that, my gut was out of control, I was overweight only in my belly. I had a 41-inch gut. All my extra tonnage was in my fatty liver. And so I had the same stick arms and stick legs that I have now, but just this ridiculous gut. And my brother, in the way that brothers can be loving, pointed out that I was a fat ass. And so I needed to do something about it. And he recommended keto based on the success that he had with this cancer person. And so the version of keto that he was using was seriously therapeutic. It's the kind advocated by Thomas Seyfried, the cancer researcher, and Miriam Kalamian, for viewers who are familiar with her work. And this is a very, very intense form of keto where the purpose of it is therapeutic. You're trying to generate as much ketone, get as high a ketone level as you can in your blood for the healing properties. And so a lot of people say for keto, you want to have about 4 times as much fat as protein by calories. That's not what these folks say. They want 4 times as much fat as protein by weight, by grams. For every gram of protein you eat 4 grams of fat. And if you've never tried it, that's a lot of fat. That's a lot of fat. You eat a very fatty meal, and then at the end of it, you do your calculations. And this is what wore me out, the calculations. You do the calculations like, oh, now I have to eat 4.5 tablespoons of coconut oil in tea because I had too much protein in my fatty steak. And so that really wore me out. I just couldn't. I was trying to do it 3 times a day, and I just could not face that morning, noon, and night. And just one morning, I thought, you know what? If I don't eat any breakfast, I won't have any protein, and then I won't have to eat any fat. Thank God. And the same thing happened at lunch. And then I had the one meal that I was satisfied with, which involved hollandaise sauce and asparagus. And I had it, and I had already done the calculations for that. And I thought, you know what? If I do this again tomorrow, I won't have to deal with any of this nonsense. I'll just have the same meal. I won't have the breakfast. I won't have the lunch. I'll just have the same meal. I won't have to spend any time on data entry. It'll be easy. And it was. And from there, I then learned from Jason Fung about the almighty role of insulin in weight loss. And I was already experiencing it. But once I learned from him that you can control your weight loss, your rate of weight loss by lowering your insulin, and you can lower your insulin 2 ways. One way, cut out the carbs. Other way, reduce the meal frequency. I thought, this is what I'm doing. 10 weeks later, I had lost all the weight I needed to lose. It was just mind-blowingly simple once Jason Fung explained to me the why, why it would work. Of course it worked. So I think I answered your question. I may have lost track of it.
I think you did. And in your interview, I think it was the Keto Mechanic. I think you mentioned a couple of times during that you lost all your weight in 10 weeks. And I hadn't realized that before. And so I started thinking about mine too. And I didn't have too much to lose by the time I left low carb, high fat and got into keto, and thusly got into the Keto Mad. And Keto Mad, your site, into the OMAD. And so it didn't take too long. And it's just interesting that once you get that, and how simple Jason Fung was with that for you. Sometimes when things click, it's like the Game of Thrones intro where it's got all the gears and stuff and everything just kind of makes it all look so
complicated.
Well, no, that look well,
sorry,
or simple in the sense of, you know, when he gets to the insulin resistance, that's what it is. That's what it is. And it's like, okay, so then I could spend a little time watching insulin resistant videos, and then I'll come across somebody that's doing one of the videos, and they'll just say something like, if you've got a big gut, you've got insulin resistance. And it's like, oh, is it really that simple, at least in identifying, you know? So it's just, I don't know. I like everything about it, and I like how you got to it. Now, did Marnia make the hollandaise sauce?
No, she didn't. She would often try to help me with it, but she was very clear when I started this keto thing. She's, and just for those who don't know her role on the channel, she joins me on OMAD. I mean, she does 1 meal a day with me, but she continues to enjoy her carbs from time to time, which to me is amazing. If I ate, like, she's an excellent cook, and she makes tacos from scratch, well, not from scratch. She buys the corn tortillas, but she fries them herself and puts the meat in it. And if I have a corn tortilla with my taco meat, it's going to make me hungry. That's the effect that the carb's going to have. There's no way I could stick to 1 meal a day eating the corn tortilla, but she can. I mean, this is just where things clearly differ from person to person, the sense of craving, and that she can have a little bit of carbs, and of course she understands the value of keeping insulin low and of keeping her carbs low. But you know, different people have different perspectives, and for me, the idea of never having a corn tortilla again is not it's not terrifying. Well, on some level, I don't like to say no, never to anything, because I do believe that I'm a mature adult with an understanding of my metabolism, and that if the occasion is right and I feel like it for whatever reason, and I don't intend to make a habit of it, I feel like that can happen. So I don't say never, but my experience is basically never. And she just couldn't do that. She couldn't look at that and say, yeah, I can be happy for the rest of my life knowing I'm never going to have this candy again. I'm never going to have this cake again. So she needs to find some kind of balance there. And I don't. I'm a lot happier not trying to find that balance. So that's one of the differences between us. But no, she never wanted to participate in the keto. And nevertheless, so I am a guy who has no talent for cooking, and whose wife has always done the cooking. And I'm in the kitchen bungling, making a mess of everything. And so I would screw things up, and then she would help me at the end to sort of make them palatable and presentable. But no, she did not get involved in the hollandaise, because that's just too easy to break. It's just too delicate a sauce. And at the end, you know, by a couple months in, I was no longer doing hollandaise. Just be happy with just have the eggs, you know, and have different oils. In the keto time, I was using a lot of avocado and coconut oil. But I've moved on now. I don't, this is a difference between us now at this point in our journeys. You still are a big fan of those kinds of oils. And I think they're, and I'm not putting them down. Certainly they're nothing like soybean oil or these other hydrogenated PUFA heavy oils. So coconut oil, olive oil, and avocado oil are good oils if you're going to use plant-based oils, but I don't use any. I try not to use anything plant-based if I can avoid it.
Okay. Thank you for that explanation. And so I have two questions for you. I can give you them both in a row. And then you can answer each one, or give you one, get the answer, and then give you one again.
Since I'm going to forget the second one, I promise, let's do one at a time, because
okay.
I have a small brain.
Did you ever not have a full button in your entire food journey? And do you have one now?
Well, that's a great question. This is totally unlike our first conversation. We didn't rehearse this at all. All right. It's more interesting. Yeah. Okay. This lets me tell a story about the M&Ms. I did have a full button. I absolutely did through my entire childhood. I believe my mother was unduly influenced by bad nutritional advice and helped break that full button. I think she was trying to do the right thing for me, because everyone told her that breakfast was the most important meal of the day and I needed to have breakfast. And it just distressed her that I wouldn't eat anything for breakfast. I would just get up and like, I'm not hungry. I didn't understand at the time. I woke up burning fat the way a human body is supposed to. And the reason I wasn't hungry is that I had plenty of fat on me to burn. So there was no reason for me to feel hunger in the morning. But she was distressed because in junior high, I would just sit and stare at a plate of bacon and eggs. And I don't want that. I don't want to eat that. And she's like, oh, you need to eat this. And she's busy. She's a working mom. She's got stuff to do. She just needs me to get that stuff into my stomach so that she can feel good about being a good mom. And she can go on with her day. And I understand, as an adult, I understand the pressure that I put on her by being this obstinate little kid. I just can't eat that bacon and eggs. But so she wanted to make me eat in the morning. And she said, okay, Mike, what do you want? I will make whatever you want for breakfast if you will just promise to eat it. And I was a kid. I was 7th grade. I want chocolate. Make malt-o-meal and put, I don't know, about 5 tablespoons of Hershey's Quick in it, and I'll eat it. And I did every day for the whole of junior high. And that's when my sense of appetite started to dysregulate. Right? Every morning, first thing in the morning, I would get up and I would have a ridiculous amount of sugar every morning. And from there, it came to, I didn't want meat at lunch. I wanted French fries at lunch. I started to become a sugar addict. And the thing is, I'm a lean type person. Physiologically, through my 20s and into my 30s, I was lean. And I ended up in high school getting a job at Whataburger, which is a Texas hamburger chain, and it came with a free meal. And so I always had like a chocolate shake and a cheeseburger, and I wasn't supposed to get fries, but 16, I snuck some fries in. So I was eating that every day, and I did not put on any weight. I lived on chocolate shakes, French fries, and hamburgers through high school, into college. At the college cafeteria, my favorite thing was chocolate milk, just on tap. And I just kept eating that way. And I would look at other people doing diets, trying to lose weight, and think, what are they doing wrong? They don't understand anything. And it just all sorted itself out. And so I am eventually getting to the M&Ms and the answer to your question of when I noticed my button was broken. So after my mid-30s, the weight really started to pile on. Suddenly I was experiencing life as most American. All the people I had looked at and wondered what was wrong with them. Suddenly that same thing was wrong with me as well. And my girth just kept increasing and increasing and increasing. And the reason I was receptive to my brother when he told me I needed to do something was because just a few nights prior to that, I sat down to my computer with a big bag of peanut M&Ms. And I ate the amount of M&Ms that I settled on before I started. And this will be fine. And then 10 minutes later, the thought that went through my brain was, you know what would be really good right now? More M&Ms. And I thought, you just ate like a pound of M&Ms. How can you possibly want more M&Ms? And my body's answer was, I don't know, but I sure do. Let's get, and pronto, buddy. So that's when I realized my satiety. I didn't have the lexicon to think about satiety signaling and insulin and ghrelin and leptin and all. None of that stuff meant anything to me. But that's when I realized something's broken here, and I really needed that to happen before I could listen to the criticism from my brother. Because if I could just come up to a random fat person in the store and say, hey, you're overweight and I can fix you. Let me tell you what you need to do. We know it. That conversation's not going anywhere. They're not psychologically in a receptive place. But that M&M experience where I just couldn't believe I just ate so many. And how could I want more? That's what made me receptive to realizing there's something profoundly wrong with my metabolism, and I need to address it. And that's what enabled me to see my brother's recommendation as possibly constructive. So I think that does your first question, right?
Right. And so then this would be like 1A. Did you have to withdraw or have little rules about not having bowls of peanut M&Ms at your computer after you realized that perhaps there's no stop button or full button?
Okay, well, I did what I think a lot of people do, and that is I tried to wean. I tried to taper, right? I think, oh, I got to quit drinking so much Coke because I was a Coca-Cola fiend. And here's the policy that I tried to enact with Marnia. Marnia, let's not buy Cokes in 2 liters anymore, okay? Or cans. We won't have it in the house. But if ever you're stopping at a fast food place, which is pretty much every other day, be sure and pick me up a Coke. I can have a Coke if you're at a fast food place. What is the thinking in that? Like, under these special circumstances that you went to the fast food place, I can have a Coke. It's just ridiculous sense that somehow I'm effectively modifying my intake. And of course, if I want a Coke, it just means instead of going to the fridge, I have to drive to Jack in the Box, which is like a block and a half from my house. That did not work at all. That only makes things worse. That only made me struggle 24 hours a day with thinking about what can I do to justify this habit. And where that really ended up was with exercise being a very self-destructive substitute for weight loss, because I never lost weight by exercising. But I would love to tell myself after my exercise that I had earned a Coke. Good boy, Mike. You get a Coke for having done that exercise. That was wrong. And so what happened eventually, and I don't know if this goes to any question you have left, but I'll just wrap up the story. What happened eventually is I ended up driving across the state of Texas. Austin is a good 11 hours from El Paso, where my parents live. And my brother picked me up in Austin so we could go visit my parents. And on the way, he made me listen to Gary Taub's The Case Against Sugar. He played the audiobook. And this had a tremendous effect on me. We've talked about this in comments just today. When you know better, you do better. Taub's explained on a very simple level with very clear mechanisms. Look what happens when you pump insulin into a person, even without calories. Notice the fat deposits on the leg of this person where he injects his insulin. Is that because he's getting more calories in his leg? It's obviously he's got a fat deposit there because of the insulin. It's not hard. It's not difficult to see. And Jason Fung will make the same point, right? That people, there's a thing called diabulimia where type 1 diabetics refuse to take their insulin because they know it's going to make them gain weight. And so it's just this simple. I listened to the book. I understood sugar drives insulin. Insulin makes it impossible for you to burn fat. And then by the time we reached El Paso, Texas, where there is a little place called Chico's Tacos, which everyone who's from El Paso loves Chico's Tacos. It's a fetish for the locals. And I don't eat it all the time because I don't go to El Paso very often. But I had always given myself permission to have Chico's Tacos and a Coke anytime I went to El Paso. And that night, I had Chico's Tacos and water. And that night, after hearing Gary Taub's book, I'm like, I don't want a Coke. I can have one, but I don't want one. And I haven't had a Coke since. And this is the part of the experience that I really like to stress for people. I didn't make up my mind not to have Coke. Gary Taubes made up my mind not to have Coke because he presented the information well enough. And if you're still craving Coke, even though you know how bad it is for you, then you don't know how bad it is for you. And you need to listen to more people who will explain how bad it is for you. And once you get it, I just honestly think that stopping with the drinking of sugar is the first step that shows you have any awareness at all about health in our toxic food environment. And that was a long answer. And so please, you talk.
What was your question? That was great. I love that. And out of that came a million more questions. But one of the things, the more we talk, the more interesting it gets, because when you were talking um, about setting that policy, I love that policy about Coke, that if Marnia brought it or you happened to be driving by it, then you could have the Jack in the Box Coke. So you put the sanction on yourself, and then you gave yourself permission. Like if Greg came home with my 7-layer cake that I would demolish, and I'd use a shrimp cocktail fork,
to make it last.
Oh, you bet. And so if he bought it, then I couldn't hurt his feelings, right?
You can't control what other people are going to do, right? You can't allow your diet to take over your reactions to other people. It's a
gesture of love.
Oh, of course it is. Of course it is.
So anyway, my addiction would kick in. Now, for me, it's like, okay, I've got this item here and I've got my shrimp cocktail fork, and my addiction kicks in. You've got your Coca-Cola there, and what got you to just do that from listening to Gary Taubes is you, and it was interesting because it came from that, I don't need motivation because I have information. So there was no doctor in the world that could be talking about what that square, it's a loaf, that's how big it was, and what that would do to me metabolically. There's nothing in the world that could get to me metabolically, any lecture going on
right
about that. But it had to be the addiction of finally just getting sick and tired of being sick and tired of that. And you get there from another different reason. And it's interesting. And one of the first things I remember about you, so it had to be, I don't know, you can do the timeline, is when you said, and I had Coca-Cola in the refrigerator for, you fill in the blank, months, and I didn't have any. It was it sounded almost alcoholic to me, because alcoholics will say, and I still have that same 6-pack in my refrigerator in case company comes. And it's funny because, Bud puts a drink by date on their beers. And so that's what that reminded me of, is that you had that Coke there. And I don't know if it was to test you, remind you, or in case you did have company. I don't know. But it's just kind of funny how we, once we think that we've passed a safety zone, like I still couldn't have that. I couldn't have that cake in the fridge. I know I couldn't live with that. But when you said, and I just heard somebody else say this in a video about giving up drinking your sugar is often a first step for a lot of people.
Right. It was the first step for me, and it's the first step I recommend to people, because the thing that Americans need to do, look, we're all fat and sick and the victims of a predatory healthcare system. And if we let Dr. Oz persuade us, we're just going to keep getting fatter and sicker and paying more money to our predatory healthcare system. We have to take care of ourselves. And the way to take care of yourself means you got to cut out the sugar and the seed oil. Start right there. You got to cut out the sugars and the seed oils. But in my opinion, asking the ordinary American to cut out sugars in all forms and seed oils in all forms at one go, well, that's what I tried to do with keto. And it was a nightmare. I mean, it was, I didn't know how to cook. I didn't have any preparation. I just think in a practical sense, in terms of your life as a healthy, happy person, you have to do this. But in terms of practically achieving that end, I don't think many people are prepared to do it all in one go. And so for me, I think giving up drinking sugar, that's the single most destructive thing that we can eliminate without having to experience much discomfort at all. Because if you're getting a sugar craving and all you've done is cut out the liquid sugar, you can still have a piece of cake, right? What we're trying to do is establish a new habit here, a new way of relating to food, and stop drinking calories. This is another difference between Marnia and me, between you and me, between Scott the truck driver and me. A lot of people do a lot of fatty coffees. That's drinking calories. I oppose that. I drink water I drink black coffee. I drink unsweetened tea. And I think most people should probably do the same. But that could be just me overgeneralizing from my experience. And I don't think that coconut oil is bad for you. And if you want to put it in your coffee, I don't have a big problem with it compared to sugar. But I think it reinforces that habit of, I'm not going to have to chew or digest or put my body to work in any way. I just get energy. And I don't think we should be reinforcing that paradigm. I think we should be challenging that paradigm in every way that we can. So that's a bit of a digression, but the point is, if you start with just cutting out the sugar that you drink, then you're not going to have what people call the keto flu, what I would call carbohydrate withdrawal, because I hate blaming keto. This is an aside, but when you call it the keto flu, it's like you're blaming the keto for the shakes that you're getting. But when an alcoholic experienced delirium tremens, is that because he stopped drinking alcohol or because he spent years drinking too much alcohol? What's the culprit here? And so I prefer to call this phenomenon that people experience, which I know is uncomfortable, carbohydrate withdrawal, and it sucks, and you have to get through it. But you won't trigger that just by cutting out liquid sugar. If you still are eating, you don't even need sweetened food. You can have potatoes and rice and bread, and you'll get plenty of sugar not to have carbohydrate withdrawal. And that helps you build an easy habit. And to me, from there, the second step is get rid of the seed oils. You got to get rid of these PUFA oils that are lowering your cholesterol. Forget that. They're not low. Well, yes, they are technically lowering your cholesterol by doing tremendous metabolic damage to you. You have to cut out the soybean oil and stuff, but it's in every packaged food almost. And so many of us are so dependent on these prepackaged foods that saying, right out of the gate, you're not going to drink sugar. You're not going to eat sugar. You're not going to eat any foods with PUFA oils in them. People are just going to starve and be grumpy and angry. They're not knowing what they're doing. So even though this is the vexing thing, even though I think it's easiest to give up sugar all at once, I think the more you tickle that addiction by giving yourself a slight indulgence here and there, I think the worse you make it on yourself. But at the same time, I understand that most people are not prepared to give it up cold turkey. So my recommendation is, I think Dr. Westman loves to say, calories count, but don't count them. I like things like that. Let's face the reality is, of course, if you eat too many calories, you're going to have trouble losing weight. But calories aren't driving your weight problem. Hormones are driving your weight problem. Eat the right kinds of calories and you'll get the hormones under control and you won't be hungry. In the same way, I think you should go cold turkey, but don't go cold turkey if you know you're going to fail. Don't fail. Go cold turkey if you can, but don't fail. Never set up a pattern of failure in the way you modify your diet. And this is something that I thought hard about back when I was doing the Keto Cowboy videos and doing those weekly things. I wanted to set up challenges that would be really easy, almost effortless to do 1 week at a time, because you want to set up a pattern of positive feedback loops where every time you say, I'm going to do X, it's not that you struggle and by the skin of your teeth, a week later, you've done X. It's that at the end of the week, it's like, that wasn't so bad. That was okay. And so if you can do cold turkey right out of the gate, I applaud you. Get after it. Probably you have some cooking skills already, but do not go cold turkey if you know you're going to fail. That's how you end up with all these people who are doing intermittent fasting with all the carbs. They can't give up their sugar addiction, so they keep having their 1 meal a day, their 2 meal a day, whatever it is. They think, I'm going to make this work, and I'm going to keep eating the foods that are driving my appetite. That's miserable. That is a miserable pattern. And yet they think it's preferable to the prospect of giving up their ice cream. And so here we're just struggling between psychology, personal limitations, nutrition, satiety. There are so many things to balance. And this is why I love that you put out a new video 5 days a week, Sarah. That's why I think You do so much good for the weight loss community by coming out every day, every weekday, to have coffee with people and sort of reinforce, look, this is the way I'm doing it today. And it may not be the exact same way you're doing it, but I'm sticking with it and I'm making it work. And you're just modeling success. You're modeling the making of something, the making work of something.
Thank you. I think what I try to do is what I need, which is consistency. Okay, so you said so many things. I have so many things in my head. It's going to explode. So, and one of the things is that when I think of the people that are in my face-to-face life, they wouldn't know what food item has sugar in it. If you said something from Dunkin' Donuts, they go, oh, sure, yeah, right. But they wouldn't know dressing, hamburger buns,
ketchup,
pasta, all the stuff that has like sugar added to it now that didn't maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So they wouldn't even know that thing. So to do stop drinking sugar, which is, like sweet tea, it's not a big popular drink up here in the Northeast because we have Dunkin' Donuts with mulata and culotta and strong brews and whatever. Now they have a brown sugar cold brew. I don't know any of these things. I walk into a Dunkin' Donuts to get a gift card for somebody that's hooked on that stuff, or I'm assigned to get it for somebody, and it's like, I'm reading the menu and it's like, this is disgusting. And I'm looking at the shelves behind them and it's like, wow, no, thank you. So just having them give up the sweetened drinks is just a place to start, because their ignorance, and I hate that word, but their lack of knowledge about foods with sugar in it just they just don't even have a clue. And nobody face to face really asked me about it. Although one of my dearest friends did ask me a couple of days ago. She said, "Have you ever heard of the keto diet?"
Did you send her a link to your channel?
Yeah, she watched Messy Monday yesterday, and I said, "This is what I've been doing 3 years, and it's my YouTube channel, and it's the food coaching that I've told." Anyway, it's just like, but so I said, "Well, who was talking about that?" Because I wanted to know if there's somebody face to face here on Cape Cod that does it, right? Besides. Right. It's so funny because the two custodians at the police department, one, his ex-wife does it up in New Hampshire, and the other custodian, his mother does it, and his sister does it. And it's like, well, you have to give them my channel because, old ladies and me get along, right? But anyway, so we'll see what happens. But so I got excited because I thought she was going to tell me somebody locally. And it's like, well, turn that person onto my station so we can maybe meet someday or something. At Dunkin' Donuts. No. So she said that there's Shark Tank has a keto magic pill or something.
Oh.
And I don't know Shark Tank, but I do know the premise is that people present ideas and then one of them is a gazillionaire and they back that person doing it. So I guess there's a keto pill. And I said, well, I strongly suggest that you learn a little bit about keto before you just order the pills, because I think you probably need to have that with keto friendly foods, but we'll see what happens with that. Okay. So there's that. So the next thing you'll be interested to know, because I'm always evolving, right?
Okay.
Just down to butter in my coffee and heavy whipping cream. No more oils. And so that's so it's just the butter flavor with the heavy whipping cream. And so it's 1 tablespoon of heavy whipping cream and 1 tablespoon of the butter.
Congratulations. I'm glad to hear that you're leaving out the oils. I'm impressed.
Yeah. I know. And I'm sitting there thinking about all these oils that I have because, of course, I'm a little hoarder and short and stout. Anyway, so there's that. And then today is Tuesday. And Monday through Friday, I have a big bowl with 5 or 6 or 100 types of lettuces. having it tonight.
What are you having instead?
Leftover keto pizza.
Which is mostly carnivorous. Although, and this is a thing where I'm a little more concerned about nuts than you are, I think. I mean, this is part of what drives me to carnivory is the toxic properties of nuts, which some people can handle fine, and especially almonds. And do you use almond flour in your keto pizza?
I do.
Yes, right. So this is where, I mean, we can explore the differences in our approaches if we want to, but it's more fun to explore the similarities, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
okay, so so when I make a keto pizza, it's just cheese and meat toppings on it. And I try to leave out, I have been leaving out the tomato sauce for my elimination diet because I want to see what effect tomatoes, which are nightshades, have on me when I reintroduce them. But look, I'll admit tomato flavor is kind of important to my pizza experience. So I definitely prefer pizza with a little bit of tomato sauce on it. And I hope that it turns out that my body can handle that tomato stuff without any problem. But a lot of people do struggle with nightshades, and we'll see. I'm several weeks from reintroducing tomatoes.
Too bad they didn't make like a lactose tomato sauce like they do ghee, for butter, right?
No tomato solids in this tomato sauce.
I think it's the visual for me, because if you painted the top of my pizza shell before I add the cheese and toppings, you just painted it with like, a blush color.
Right.
I would have the visual of thinking this is tomato sauce and it will work. But yeah, so I'm evolving and I like that. And I did come home from my overnight shift and make the salad, and I will have it tomorrow night. But I stopped having asparagus and cauliflower crumbles during the week. I only have that on Sundays now. So I'm slowly, and I feel okay.
Right. Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. Now it's not that I'm going to be a carnivore, but although I have no reason that I wouldn't be, it's just the volume. I want to feel full.
Okay, Sarah, I'm gonna say something to you because I can say it to you and I can't say it to my sister-in-law.
Okay.
That idea of volume, and you come at food from the perspective of a food addiction. And so it may be that in your psychology, there's something fundamentally different from what there is in my psychology, and that what I'm saying cannot possibly be useful to you. But it drives me crazy when my sister-in-law, the vegan, talks about how she keeps her dog full on carrots and potatoes because of the volume. Like the dog's hungry and she won't give it meat because she's a vegan. So she makes it eat a bunch of vegetables to feel full. And this is where I think fundamentally, this goes back to childhood psychology and the notion of fullness being associated with volume. But once you've learned to look at nutrition through the lens of hormones rather than calories, and I know you're there, and I know most people who watch your channel they already know calorie counting is not going to save me. Hormones are going to say, paying attention to my insulin and the other hormones that are relevant, that's what's going to save me. Once you get there, you realize fullness, satiety, the sense of being full isn't about the volume of food in your stomach. And this is where I think damage has been done to you and other women your age and younger their whole lives by being told to fill up on salad and roughage and and my sister-in-law. I think she's taking that and imposing it on her dog. This idea I'm going to make fullness has to do with consuming more. And if there are no calories, if it's, let's say it's cucumbers or lettuce or whatever, if there are no calories, all the better because I'll feel full. No, you won't feel full. You feel full when you get nutrients. Fullness and satiety is a function of nutrition, not of volume. So when you eat nutrient-dense foods, it's stunning how little you have to eat. Like and this is what I learned on my week of eating burger only, unsalted hamburger. When I ate that for one week, I did not think I would have any trouble putting away 1.5 pounds, which is what Blake Donaldson, the cardiologist whose book Strong Medicine I'm always recommending, he recommends for an adult male 1.5 pounds of meat, and he likes 3 meals a day, 1/2 pound, 3 at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I think I could easily have done that 1/2 pound over 3 meals, but I didn't want to change my OMAD schedule. I wanted it all at once. So I'm eating 1.5 pounds of hamburger. And if you think about 1.5 pounds of hamburger, a lot of people eat 1.5 pounds, the equivalent of 1.5 pounds of hamburger, plus breads, plus veggies, plus other stuff over the course of the day. All this other stuff that screws up their hormones and makes them feel hungry. And so they can end up eating easily way over 1.5 pounds of ground beef with other things. But I was eating just 1.5 pounds of ground beef once a day. You think, well, it's been 24 hours since you've eaten. Aren't you hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. 1 pound into that meal, I was stuffed. And it's not, how full did I feel? Fuller than I ever felt on pizza or spaghetti or cake or M&Ms or any of that stuff. How full? Was it from the volume? No. I mean, this is where what the point I really want to get across to my sister-in-law for the sake of her dog and to all women, including my mother. Please stop thinking of this big bowl. You look at that big bowl of salad and you say, that's going to fill me up. There's no nutrition in that. There is a ton of nutrition in meat. You won't have to eat very much to get it. So this is a point about which I feel strongly. And now what I've done, Sarah, is I've used you as a proxy for my sister-in-law. And I just took that all out on you. You didn't ask for that. But you're a counselor, so you can handle this stuff.
I can. Give me.
But those are my thoughts.
Sometimes it's nice to just be able to say to another woman that you know is like a safe place.
Yes.
Understand that, what it means, because, we have that frustration about us with, okay. So what we've got is we're 49 minutes into this.
Okay.
Now, I know that the last time we discussed things, we wanted to talk about the loneliness sometimes of being keto. And one of the things now, so you just hit upon it in such a way that, like, how many people can, I've gotten close to you. I've gotten close to Richard, the 2 men that I've done interviews with, and we're friends outside of the face-to-face for the whole world to know, because we email and text and things like that. But, our world is small for confidants or people that we know we can try out, test out feelings. And you just did that through me. And it's like, sometimes, I want to say that to, like a client that, because it's interesting being, a food coach, because the clients, sometimes they fight me and sometimes they're compliant, but it's just funny because sometimes I have to almost have a makeup client that I can say, well, I had a client.
Right.
Kind of like what you were just saying about the sister. So cut it out. I heard it. And maybe by osmosis, she will get that. But that was very powerful for me, because I think I'm on the precipice of going fuller, richer with my meat source or protein source, and easing up on the vegetables and, the 4 tablespoons of oils that I use, and maybe making it smaller, maybe eliminating it, maybe only having it like every other day or something. But clearly things are working inside of me that are making me lessen the bulletproof coffee, not have a salad on a Tuesday. It's like, hope I don't get arrested by the
the lettuce police.
But the lettuce police. So it's just very interesting, because I always think that most of us are works in process with our keto journey. And that's why it's so exciting, and it does change day by day. And even you with your elimination and then you're reintroducing, it's like, don't miss that episode because Mike could be back with something, you know, like adding the butter. Wait a second. And chicken? No. What was the other thing you were adding?
I'm adding chocolate out of jealousy of Jim Caldwell at beating obesity. Absolutely. 100% jealous, just straight up jealousy. I look at him doing his meal with his little chocolate at the end, and I think, I miss that. And I used to eat that, and I wasn't gaining weight when I did. Why am I keeping this out of my diet? I can eat chocolate in small portions without it being a problem. Dark chocolate, very little sweetener. And so I can make that work. Why am I denying myself this thing? And of course, the answer is to find out how it affects me when I reintroduce it is why. But that doesn't mean that I'm not tearing my hair out. But that's getting me into the elimination thing, which isn't the question that you just brought up, which is about loneliness. And
we're going to have to make that episode 3 and remember.
Oh, okay.
Decided to make it because it's like, you know, we're not done with what we're talking about. For those of you that aren't familiar with Jim Caldwell, his YouTube channel is Beating Obesity. And he and I are having almost, well, it's almost like a daily thing. He comments on mine. I try to get to his. I have more time during the middle of the week than I do on weekends. And he's a very fascinating person. And he, like you say, he comes from the engineering background. So he's got a lot of the logic that I just love that men have. Like, you know, I was teasing you, I think, in a comment the other day. There you go again, putting in your logic, you know. And so I learned of him through you, but he's been listening to me every day and commenting. And I really like that. So for all of you people that only know me and don't know Keto Mad, which is Mike that you've been listening to, or Jim, who is Beating Obesity, their takes and philosophies of all of this food stuff is fascinating and could be very helpful in your own journey. Because sometimes we tend to listen to the same sex videos. And, you know, I just think that both of you have a good take. Keto the Mechanic has a great take.
Right.
Gonzo Steve has interesting, you know, he's just coming off of a 20-day fast. He's got some interesting things to say. So there's just such a wealth of people that we can go to the next, to the next, to the next. But Beating Obesity should definitely be in my followers' rotation.
Right. Well, what I'll add to that is that, I don't know, 10 years ago when I liked spending a lot of time in front of my computer screen, eating sweets, drinking Coke, and playing video games with people online, I would never have called any of the people that I gamed with my friends. I wouldn't have called them friends. I'd never met them in person. They were fellow gamers. That's how I thought of them. They were fans of whatever game I was playing. But I really do. I mean, this is the way I can testify to the loneliness in the keto community. I really do. I've referred to you as my friend. I've referred to Jim Caldwell as my friend. Doug Wright, the raw carnivore who just stopped by he actually drove Amy Berger to my house after KetoCon because he
ate the ribeye.
Yes, he ate the raw ribeye. I called him my friend, having just met him, but I did meet him in person. But I think of all these people. I've interviewed Rich, the Keto Mechanic. I'm blanking on every interview. I've been doing an interview every week. Why? Why have I been doing an interview? Why have I been trying to make friends with strangers all over the country just because they're on YouTube doing keto? Because I'm lonely. That's why. Because even though Marnia does OMAD with me, and even though Marnia is the world's best wife, I'm a very happily married man. No complaints about Marnia, but she doesn't do keto. Now, at the end of the day, I look across the table and there's the rice on her plate, or there's the tortilla, or there's the piece of bread. And you know, she's not doing what I'm doing. And you are, even if you use some plant stuff that I wouldn't use, you are mostly doing what I'm doing. Jim comes much closer. He's He calls his plan the meat-o-matic because he eats one meal a day, basically meat, very close to what I do. And he's in Chicago. I've never met him. And yet we interact with each other on Twitter all the time. You and I email back and forth all the time. And making friends within this community, the point I would want to make to people is it's way easier than you imagine. All I had to do to get Jim to be interviewed by me was ask him. All I had to do to get you to be interviewed by me was ask. I mean, and no one puts me off. No one's like, oh, I have more subscribers than you. It would be a waste of my time. That's not why you're doing this. That's not why Jim is doing this. We're all trying to get the message out and trying to build a community that can be supportive so that in our moments of weakness, we can feel sustained and empowered and rejuvenated by the people around us. And that's critically important. And if you're trying to do it on your own, and you think you don't need to make any friends, I think it's a mistake. And I think the clearest example I can give of how easy it is you and I have a relationship now because you put a video up on YouTube once upon a time, and I put a comment on that video. That's all there was to beginning a relationship. And now I get emails from you during the day that make me laugh. And here we are having this conversation. So don't let your loneliness, my word of advice to people in keto is don't let your loneliness be a problem. It doesn't have to be. Just as you just make up your mind to stop eating the grains, the sugars, the seed oils, you just make up your mind to do that. All I had to do was make up my mind to make some friends in the keto community. And guess what? They're all as starved for companionship in this way of eating as you are. And so that's the lesson, I think.
Yeah. And I think that it enriches, like I notice in my comments, the fact that like I'm now starting to do, this sort of thing, like with you and with Richard, is that, people from your community or my community or that are both, they'll start commenting, and then people will comment on comment. Like I noticed after I did my interview with Richard, the Keto Mechanic, is that, he hopped in and commented to people that had things that I couldn't have answered that he could. And I found I did that on yours after our first episode. And it's so enriching and it's nourishing.
It is.
It's nourishing in a way that all the fats in the keto food plan couldn't come close to how nourishing and enriching it makes my world, because I know that these people are just, and it's not just like a silly online thing that people say, oh, they're just online. You really need to work on having friendships outside of being, like, why don't you go make a friend, It's like
a real life friend.
Huh?
A real life friend.
Yeah. Make a real live one. And it's like, I've been in AA for 31 years and every now and then, I'll have a connection with a woman or a man there, but then they'll do something stupid like go and drink. And it's like, suddenly the relationship loses the continuity,
Right.
Like if you said to me, I'm going to be a vegetarian, and although Rich is going to do it as an experiment, but
right.
Do you know what I'm saying? And it's like, what?
Good luck to him.
Yeah. But it is an experiment as long as we keep remembering that. And
right.
So anyway, it just, this does add a lot to my life. And both of us having channels, it enriches our lives because we're not going to stop making videos alone, but it's just nice to have the sharing part because, we bounce stuff off of each other. Look at us. We've gone an 1 hour exact.
Right. I know we've got to just save our thoughts for next time. But
we've just got to remember this loneliness thing and the community.
Right. We have to respect our evolutionary heritage as human beings. And when it comes to nutrition, you need to eat something that's evolutionarily appropriate for you. And also, you're a human. You're a social creature. You need to respect your evolutionary heritage in that regard as well. It's hard to do anything alone. We can all do stuff alone for short periods. But if you're talking about doing it for the rest of your life, you're probably going to need someone to bounce some ideas off from time to time.
You're right. You're right. All right. Well, this has been a treat. Hang on after we stop the broadcast. And thank you all of the people that have watched this. And I will put a link to Mike's, the Cowboys YouTube channel below, and maybe even Beating Obesity for Jim, because he got a lot of props in the last 5 minutes, didn't he?
I guess he did.
And so we will do this again, and we promise that we will bring up the keto community and loneliness right at the start, because we took an hour and we didn't even get close to it. So thank you, all of you. And Mike, I will see you on the other side. Thanks for watching.